Good morning, everyone. In yesterday's lecture, we started dealing with feminist criticism, in which we understood that feminist literary criticism, which is also known as feminist criticism, is the literary analysis that arises from the viewpoint of feminism, feminist theory, and feminist politics. We also understood that feminist literary critique or critics resist traditional assumptions while reading a text. To resist means to oppose. Feminist critics oppose traditional assumptions. Assumptions are the things which are taken for granted. While reading any kind of literary text, they resist, they oppose these traditional assumptions. They challenge these assumptions which claim to be universal or which are thought to be universal. At the same time, feminist literary criticism actively supports including women's knowledge in literature. This criticism thinks that women's knowledge should be included in literature, and at the same time, women's experiences should be valued. So, this is how feminist criticism is a criticism which fights for the cause of women. While doing this activity, this critical activity, feminist criticism adopts certain basic methods. Now, these methods include, I mentioned yesterday, identifying with female characters. Identifying means to see oneself in comparison to the female characters or similar to the female characters in the literary text, in a novel, in a play, etc. It does so by examining the way female characters are defined. By examining the female characters, these critics challenge the male-centered outlook of authors, the way women are presented, the way women are pursued by the authors, is challenged by feminist critics. They examine the female characters as portrayed, as presented in a given work of art. Further, this particular criticism identifies with female characters by suggesting that women in literature have been historically presented as objects seen from a male perspective. So, women are seen as objects seen from a male perspective. So, this particular thing underlines that traditionally or historically, women were considered to be objects in a patriarchal society. The second method that these criticism adopts is the revaluation of literature and the word. Reevaluation of literature and the word in which literature is read. This is done by revisiting the classic literature. The critic, feminist critic, can question whether society has predominantly valued male authors and their literary works because it has valued males more than females. So this is a kind of evaluating literature. So this method, as I said earlier, revisits classical literature and re-evaluates the male authors, their literary works, uh, assuming that the traditional literature has valued males more than females. The third method that the feminist critic adopt in the study of literature is that of embodying or undercutting stereotypes. Stereotypes are the typical representations. For example, a typical Indian woman is presented as wearing sari, etc. This is a stereotypical image. She is shown to be emotional. So, feminist criticism either embodies or undercuts stereotypes. It recognizes that literature both reflects and shapes stereotypes and other cultural assumptions. So, it examines how works of literature embody patriarchal attitudes. Embody means present in a in a particular form or undercut them, sometimes both happening within the same work. Means literature sometimes embodies patriarchal attitudes or undercuts these attitudes. Or at the same time, in some literature or in some works of art, works of literature, both thing happens. Feminist theory and various forms of feminist critique began long before the formal naming of the school of literary criticism. Although the formal naming took place in 19th century, but in the early 19th century, I'm sorry, in 20th century, I mean, but long back, the first wave feminism existed. We can refer here the book Women's Bible, written in the late 19th century by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And this particular work by Stanton is an example of a work of criticism firmly in the first wave of feminism. It looks beyond the more obvious male centered outlook and interpretation. While during the period of second wave feminism, academic circles increasingly challenged the male literary canons. And feminist criticism, as you know it very well, is an offshoot of Marxism. So, feminist literary criticism has intervened with postmodernism and increasingly complex question of gender and societal roles during the 20th century.